1,
2,
3,
4. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest fear is fear of the unknown.
Welcome to the third spooky special of The Hills Have Nerds. Tonight, I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and joining me is Lee,
Hello.
Cody,
Hello.
and all of the spirits and haints and haunts that riddle the Appalachian mountains that we call home. Tonight, we're getting a little spooky. We're getting a little creepy. We're getting, hell, altogether kooky. We're talking about the folklore of the Appalachian Mountains. And we're going to start off with one that's a little close to our home here in Pike County, over in our neighboring hollow of Hellier, Kentucky. Let's talk about the Hellier Goblins. In the backwoods hollows of Hellier, Kentucky, a chilling legend stirs beneath the surface. Locals whisper of goblins, small, grotesque figures that flit between trees, their eyes gleaming like embers in the dark. They say these creatures emerge when the fog rolls in, drawn to the secrets buried deep in the earth. Strange sounds echo through the night in Hellier, eerie laughter, rustling leaves, and the distant toll of a forgotten bell. Those who venture too close often return with wild tales of encounters that blur the line between reality and nightmare. In Hellier, the goblins await, hungry for attention and eager to share the darkness that dwells within those woods. So what does everybody know about Hellier?
I know I have a friend who has a mother from there, and that's like his claim to how wild and willing to, buck up and fight somebody. She is like, buddy, she's from Hellier. She don't care.
I have drove through Hellier a time or two. Yeah.
My mother was a postmaster over in Hellier for a long time. And I asked her back last October when we were doing our first spooky specials. I asked her, have you ever heard about, and we watched the show because there was a TV show where these city slickers come down to Hellier, Kentucky to investigate the goblins. And we'll get into the background of the goblins here in a second.
Yeah, I remember when I was making that. I just never got around to watching it.
It's fun, man. It's fun. They pick the quintessential people that you would expect to be standing outside of a 7-Eleven. I don't even think it's a 7-Eleven. I think it's a Quickie Mart or Double Quick or something down there. Stand outside of it and ask about the goblin.
Your typical 2 a.m. suspects at a Double Quick.
And half of them you can tell have never heard about what they're asking them about.
Oh, yeah, they just wanted to be on TV for those 15 seconds.
And I'm sure there's a little bit of priming when they talk to him, but
yeah.
But yeah, I asked my mom.
Now that you do mention it, I do seem to remember.
I got one locked up in my basement right now.
Well, now that you've handed me this $5 bill, I seem to have to remember. Pack of smokes and a 40 make me remember a whole hell of a lot.
It'll do wonders for you.
Pack of smokes and a Cobra. What you had in there? See what you got in that wallet, and I'll try to do some remembering. But I asked my mom about it. I said, have you ever heard anybody talk about the Hellier goblins? Because it's apparently, I mean, they made they made 2 seasons of a show about it. Like, it's got some legs, right? Like, you would expect this to have some carry to it.
I mean, yeah, I just recently listened to a podcast just talking about like supposedly true stories, and it was on there. And I was like, okay, huh.
And she had never heard anything. The woman worked over there for almost 2 decades. Never had heard hide nor hair of it. She said, now Hellier's got some goblins, but they weren't.
It's not that kind of goblin.
They weren't that kind of goblin. They were the kind where they catalytic converter stealing goblins.
Yeah, the kind that'll like, scam you out of some money at the double quick and tell you a story.
Kind that'll turn tricks, but don't have the common decency to spit their dip out. Always make them spit their dip out, boys. That's how you get a UTI. Anyway, let's talk about the Hellier goblins. So what are the Hellier goblins? And I'm going to read a little intro that's written on this website because it's going to do a lot better than I can do. It's a lamp in the underworld, thoughts on the occult, the paranormal, and the divine. And I'm going to link to it in the show notes. And they did a little article here called Hidden in Plain Sight, The Goblins of Hellier, from April 26, 2022. First off, everybody needs to know Hellier, Kentucky is a little unincorporated community, and it's an old coal town in Pike County, Kentucky. It's got a population of about 2,300 people total, and this is all coming from Wikipedia. I didn't just pull this out of my hind end. Town was established about 1906, named for Ralph Augustus Hellier. He was the head of a Pike County coal mining company. And so the Hellier Goblins started around 1955. So on August 21st, 1955, and this is directly from that Lamp in the Underworld article, 12 individuals, 5 adults and 7 children, ran into the Hopkinsville police station, claiming their farmhouse was being attacked by small aliens from a spaceship. They told the officers they'd been besieged for almost 4 hours and spent the time holding off the beings with gunfire. They described these aliens as about 3.5 feet tall, with oversized heads that were very round. Their arms extended almost completely to the ground, and they had large eyes and ears with no nose.
They said they were really pale too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The creatures supposedly peeked into the windows and tried to open the door.
Yeah, right. That's it for me, man. Windows, I can't handle it.
Dude, I got a window right here next to my computer. We're recording this on Discord, by the way, everybody. And I got a window, and I can just the curtains just slightly pulled, and I can kind of peek out into our backyard, and our backyard's just 20 yards just straight to the creek. Yep. With 2 old barns on either side. I mean, man, I get creeped out.
My window's like 20 feet off the ground. If something looks in here, I'm terrified of it.
So they peeked in the windows, tried to open the door, and police checked but found only bullet holes. The next day, the family fled their house, claiming the creatures had returned.
So, I was in it for maybe it's just these people paranoid. Maybe it's somebody tore out the frame on some kind of chemical or whatever. But when you leave your homestead or whatever, you abandon your home or whatever because of whatever you've seen. That's pretty legit, man. That's some credentials.
You at least believe what you've seen at that point.
You're invested enough to say, I'm walking away from my house.
Yeah. And the story I listened to said that they actually hit a couple of the goblins with a gunfire using a shotgun, I think, and it just slowed them down, didn't kill them.
Made a metallic sound when they hit.
Yeah.
There's a recent sighting.
Recent, really.
There's been a recent sighting of the Hellier goblins. This is from the same article. In mid-2012, Greg Newkirk received an email from a man calling himself Dr. David Christie. Now, I think this is the guy. So this is for the show. This is the show. This is the premise that started the show. Hey, Greg Newkirk's the guy that did the show, and he got a phone call from this dude calling himself Dr. David Christie. Now, the whole premise of the show is they're going down to Hellier. They're trying to meet up with David Christie. As far as I remember, they never do. Never meet this guy. And so Dr. Christie described his home in Kentucky near the West Virginia border, where he claimed he was being assaulted by extraterrestrial creatures. He described these aliens as having, quote, the size and stature of a small child, devoid of any facial features save for large, oily eyes and lipless mouths. He said they'd been peering through his children's windows in the middle of the night and attempted to enter his house. They made strange sounds and glowed with strange lights. They left three-toed, heelless tracks in the snow and mud and abducted his dog. He thought they were coming from an abandoned mine located on the edge of his property. And eventually, he sealed the entrance to the mine and also, like the people in 1955, abandoned his house.
That's wild. That's wild, dude.
I don't know if this is entirely true or not, but the podcast I'd listened to, it's the one I'm talking about, it's called Scared to Death. They basically just go through and find stories and list them, but they look stuff up as well. And if I remember right, the Dr. Christie, they said that somebody had traced the IP address back to somebody in Canada.
Yeah, there's probably a good chance of it. Like, let's be honest.
Not Canada, Kentucky, like Canada.
Canada, Kentucky is close to us, by the way, for anybody who wants to know. I don't know, man. Like, it's creepy, right? Like the Hilliard Goblins and the description of the Hilliard Goblins. We're gonna have that stuff in the show notes, and guys, it's terrifying, you know.
Yeah, it actually worries me more to hear that. Like the concept of them being aliens doesn't bother me as much as them coming out of an abandoned mine. And maybe it's the Appalachian.
Dude, you're right. Just that things randomly crawling out of holes in the hills because they're everywhere here.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but that is the exact story of The Whisper in Darkness by H.P. Lovecraft, where the Migo have taken into the mines of the hills in like the foothills of Appalachia in the Northeast. And up in New England style. And the Migo begin to just berate this one dude in his farmhouse and eventually take him. That's the story of The Whisper in Darkness, these alien crab monsters, the fungi from Yuggoth. Like what Dr. Christie described is the story of Whisper in Darkness. It's like 100%.
Yeah.
It's like, I heard this story. I might have read it in a book at some point. But
yeah. Now, Dr. Christie may just be...
They even took the dude's dog. They even took the dude's dog in The Whisper in Darkness. Like he bought extra dogs to fight the Migo off. They would leave strange footprints in the mud around his house. They would try to get into his house at night. They took his dogs like 110%.
So this is just straight up plagiarized from.
It's absolutely The Whisper in Darkness based on the Hilliard Goblins.
Yeah, Dr. Christie, I feel like is just making stuff up, but the original... possibility they seen something. It's still a good possibility they made stuff up, but I would find them more credible than dude from Canada sending a random email.
Yeah, man, I don't have trouble believing these things anymore. I'm just like, sure, like why not? Like it doesn't worry me. I'm not concerned about little aliens crawling up on my house, or whatever. Like I'm not that concerned about it, but I'm like, sure, you know.
Aliens, aliens. Who cares? You go down to Lowe's, get you an alien trap.
Right.
I mean, I feel like I'm seeing aliens and goblins whenever I go out to Double Quick anyway. So you know.
So I just know I better not change my insurance. That'll make me angry.
Yeah, right.
So can I tell you boys my thoughts on what happened in 1955 in Hillier? And I think I've shared this before.
Psychosis
is what were homesteads in rural Kentucky and rural Appalachia like in 1955? Fairly bare, probably, very rural, most likely self-built. They had 12 people, 5 adults and 7 children in one house. They were most likely living off some type of subsistence farming. They probably raised their own livestock, raised their own chickens. They probably brewed their own shine or some form of mash, something like that. And I seem to remember reading something a while back about the police reports. I'm going to see if I can pull it up while I'm talking here. But when you get to swarping and drinking, and you start hearing sounds outside, and you are of the hillbilly variety, sometimes you tend towards feuding, you know? And so
Shoot first, ask questions later.
they hear sounds outside. And what do these goblins look like? And I'm going to copy this picture here and I'm going to put it into the chat. I don't want you to look at those goblins. And I want you to tell me if they don't look like these things right here that I'm about to put out for you back into this chat. So you go out in something with big eyes, some kind of tufts on the side of its head, looks like it's got big arms, 3 clawed feet.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So those look like owls, right? Look like owls, that their eyes shined in the darkness, that they were peering into the house.
And the metallic sound is more than likely they had tin on their roof.
No. Now, here's the thing. I mean, maybe, but here's what I heard. I'm trying to find this police report. I'm trying not to tell stories out of school, but I seem to remember hearing this, and you call me a liar if you want to.
You're a liar.
Reading that. So they went out and they reported that when they shot at these things, they heard metal ricochet when they were trying to shoot at these guys. And they would find their chickens dead. Like something had killed their chickens, upon like further assault by these creatures.
I mean, an owl will kill a chicken. So.
And then they found, when the police went up there, found that their chicken coops had been shot all to hell. That these people were shooting at owls in the woods, thinking they were beset by all sorts of ghastly aliens, and had been shooting the shit out of their chicken coop.
Those poor chickens, man.
Yeah. Oh. All right. So, anybody got anything else to say on the Hellier goblins?
No, it's a cool story. I really appreciate that we have these stories. I thought some of it might be too just, you're talking about drinking and swarping. We tell tales, man. That's what we do. We are incredible storytellers in Appalachia. Oh, yeah. We're known for it. We're bored. We're isolated. Like, let's make some stuff up.
I like a good story.
I do too.
I love it. And we got 3 more coming. I figured we'd start with the Hellier goblins because they seemed like the easiest to explain away. And also, if y'all have a moment, listeners out there, take a second, look up the Hellier show. It's worth a watch. The first season, anyway. It's take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I want to make this comment regarding. I haven't watched it. So, but I saw that it was like people were commenting, like review bombing it and putting like 1 star, no goblins was the
well, there's no goblins.
They're not. They're no they don't find shit.
That's so funny.
They do the thing where like I think they had one that was kind of like sensitive, like I don't know, force sensitive or whatever the hell they call themselves. I'm a very big skeptic for this stuff. But that was like, oh, I'm feeling things. I can feel the goblin. Like, shut up. Just shut up. Shut the hell up. I can't take you serious.
It's asking me questions. It keeps saying, who? Who?
There's a goblin out there. Goblin. There's a goblin out there. It speaks to me. It's going.
Oh, okay. So I want to add this too, man. Thinking about the storytelling thing, this is kind of an aside, just something kind of interesting to put on top of that is when you think about our area, we think about this little section of Appalachia. Out of 440 high schools in the state, dude, we have our area here, our county takes up 3 of the top 10 for writing. You think about that. We're storytellers, man.
Oh, son, hillbillies can spin a yarn. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we end up with the 2nd, 3rd, and 6th best writing scores in the state out of Pike County. So out of the entire state, 440.
We love to write stories.
Yeah, we like to tell some stories, man. And it's cool that we see. I think that's a carry on of our tradition there, and that our young people still do this sort of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man. Folklore is just such a, there's a lot of cultures that can say they have really rich and vibrant folklore, but I mean, Appalachian folklore is just a whole nother monster. Whether it be spooky or not. And we're focusing on the spooky, and there's a lot of spooky, but it's just, it's so rich.
In the shadowy hollows of the Appalachian Mountains, where the mists cling to the trees and the wind whispers secrets of old, two figures emerge from the depths of folklore, Rawhead and Bloody Bones. Rawhead, a grotesque, ghastly creature with a skull-like face and a ravenous hunger, prowls the darkened woods, his very presence enough to chill the bravest of souls. Meanwhile, Bloody Bones, a skeletal specter draped in tattered remnants of the past, lingers by the riverbanks, his bony fingers beckoning children with promises of forgotten treasures. Together, they weave a tapestry of terror, warning off the consequences that await those who dare to wander too far into the night, where the line between myth and reality blurs, and the shadows hold unspeakable horrors.
Rawhead and Bloody Bones steals naughty children from their homes, takes them to his dirty den, and they are never seen again.
Now, this one I hadn't really heard of. Had you heard of them, Lee?
Yes, Rawhead and Bloody Bones is actually. See, I don't know the entire origin. I actually thought it was just like a local, absolutely like Long Fork sort of local story when I was little, because I remember going up into the hills, going four-wheeler riding with family, and somebody brought it up. We're all sitting around a campfire or whatever, hanging out when I'm, probably 8 or 10 years old, and somebody mentions Rawhead and Bloody Bones, and everybody, all the adults are like, "Oh yeah, Rawhead and Bloody Bones." They start, telling stories about it. Like, I remember seeing Rawhead and Bloody Bones and being chased by Rawhead and Bloody Bones, and I'm biting my teeth and shipping my pants, in the corner.
Well, it's usually he's told it's a cautionary tale for anybody that like misbehaves, and it's more of like Rawhead is basically just a skull that's got like looks like it has been scalped, and it's like the skin's just been ripped off. It's almost like a meaty kind of skull.
Is it the same person, or like are they supposed to be the same entity? Or?
Yeah, a little, because Rawhead is just the skull, and Bloody Bones is a skeleton that's running around that's basically just kind of bloodied and tattered, like little bits of meat taken off. But they act independently, kind of. But they're still technically just one entity, kind of thing.
Okay. When did so I got the Wikipedia over here pulled up. But so when did what is your relationship with Rawhead and Bloody Bones? You're the one who suggested them.
I've just heard it more as a cautionary tale. Is like most people have done the thing is like if you misbehave, Rawhead and Bloody Bones will come for you, and you'll never be seen again. It's kind of like similar to like Krampus, kind of like he just comes and takes naughty children away.
I mean, it seems like that's the thing, right? Because I'm reading a little bit of the background. So Bloody Bones is a boogeyman figure in English and North American folklore. His first written appearance is around 1548.
Yeah, and he comes in with a nursery rhyme in Ireland and Scotland. It's Tommy Rawhead was apparently the original name in Bloody Bones.
The Rawhead and Bloody Bones scares the absolute. Like, it's a good cautionary tale because it scared the crap out of me as a kid. And that's actually, now that you mention it, that's what I remember my dad talking about that. It was like him and the people that we were hanging out with at the time. They were talking about sneaking out one night and walking down the road when they knew they shouldn't be. And as they're walking down the road, they start hearing like chains, like on the ground and like thuds. And it was, they claimed it was they turned around to see Rawhead and Bloody Bones following them down the road, and they all took off running. So
that kind of ties into, the Appalachian rules of the hills, really.
Yep. So what are the rules of the hills, Cody?
Mainly it started off on like paranormal. I'm not entirely sure who done it, if it's like a local thing or if somebody posted on like a paranormal thing and it just kind of took off, caught traction. Mm-hmm. But those 5 rules that was: never be in the woods after dark, never leave the marked trail, never answer if you hear your name called while you're in the woods, Never whistle or sing in the woods, and never look too closely at the trees because you might not like what you see.
Oof.
And I mean, that was mainly listed as rules for like hiking along the Appalachian Trail. But I mean, that kind of goes into the cautionary tale again, because you don't want to be breaking those rules because Rawhead might come and get you.
Yeah, I don't want to cause a tangent, Josh, but you know a lot about H.P. Lovecraft, right? And that's kind of the idea, like, is like peripherally the things that are happening around us. So, like, the idea of looking into the woods, really put a focus on it, freaks me out, man.
I love that part of folklore, that fear of the unknown. The greatest fear of mankind is the fear of the unknown, or whatever. And I love that idea of just kind of looking in the woods and getting this primal terror in ourselves of, in the darkness, in the trees, what lurks and waits for me, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So just run out in the hills, stare at the tree really closely, and just start whistling and singing at it. See what happens.
Dude, you know how many Disney princesses did that shit constantly?
They weren't in the Appalachian Hills, though.
I don't know. Pocahontas was running through singing with all the voices of the mountain, painting with all the colors of the wind, and she was doing it at high pitch.
It wasn't at night, though.
It wasn't. It was Pocahontas, a little raccoon, that pug, and a tree. It wasn't Pocahontas, Rawhide, and Bloody Bones, and John Smith running around. That's so. Your dad claims to have seen Rawhide and Bloody Bones.
Yes, and it was like, I don't know if it was just intended to scare the crap out of me and all my cousins that were sitting around, the other kids. But everybody's corroborating this while we're sitting around, like, oh yeah, same thing happened to me. Really like elbowing each other and picking up on it, but we're terrified.
So
that's the thing. Like every parent or grandparent up through here is like, I had a run in with Rawhead and Bloody Bones. He didn't get me though because I listened. I came back.
I mean, I wonder what purpose that could serve. Telling children, I listened, so I got away from the devil. The devil didn't kill me.
I went home and promptly cleaned my room.
I cleaned my room and read my Bible and never said a cross word to mother nor father. And thus the haunts were kept away. That's what they hate, an honest day's work and a truthful child. No. But this the origin. Hold on.
Yeah, Rawhead and Bloody Bones are going to team up with Krampus this year for Christmas.
I've been trying to get this origin sentence out for 5 friggin' minutes. Origin. So the origins of this right here on this Wikipedia is pretty interesting from what we've been joking about. So the Oxford English Dictionary cites approximately 1548 as the earliest written appearance of, quote, bloody bone. The term Rawhead and Bloody Bones and other such names was used to, quote, awe children and keep them in subjection, as recorded by John Locke in 1693. Samuel Johnson, in his Dictionary of the English Language, first published in 1755, defined, quote, Rawhead as the name of a specter meant to frighten children. And the stories originated in Great Britain, where they were particularly common in Lancashire and Yorkshire, and spread to North America, where the stories were common in, you guessed it, the southern United States.
Yeah, there's whole long stories about Rawhead and Bloody Bones. So you can Google it and get whole huge stories. We wouldn't have time to read the one that I found here, but because I mean it's 2 or 3 pages long. But I mean it's interesting if you just want to see the development of the story, because I mean it changes from an African American folktale to it was apparently in the Ozarks for a little while, and it's been all over the place.
So, have y'all heard the story Aaron Kelly's Bones?
No.
So this is in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was when I first heard it. And Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a collection of folklore, spooky folklore, by one Alvin Schwartz. And I cannot suggest it enough to anybody. I read it when I was in elementary school, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, right?
Yeah, terrifying, dude.
Has the most unsettling art of any ever. And I think Stephen Gamble was the one who did that original. I think current iterations of the book don't have the Gamble art anymore, which is just a travesty. But Aaron Kelly's Bones was essentially a story of a woman's husband who passed away, and she began to date. And one night she had a suitor who was the local fiddler. And this is an Irish folk tale, but I actually think it came from somewhere around Appalachia, somewhere around East Kentucky, West Virginia, southwestern West Virginia. Because, I mean, we have deep Irish roots that run through this, and just listen to our music. And so she had a suitor over by the name of, actually don't even think it said the name, but her husband, Aaron Kelly, had passed away. Well, there was a knock at the door while they're having their dinner. There was his wife and her suitor, and they go open the door, and there's her husband, fresh out of the grave. He's come home.
So
He's
Monkey paw.
I mean, essentially that's what it was. He came home. He was like, all right, I'm back. I'm ready to sit down. And he just went over, sat in his chair, stretched his bones, creaked and cracked, and just was an absolute zombie sitting there in the house. And his wife was terrified. And she said, you need to go get back in the grave. You're dead. You need to get the hell out of here. And he was like, I ain't doing it. I'm sitting right here next to the fire in my chair. You can't put me back yonder in that grave.
You can't make me. It was cold and scary and lonely.
Essentially, he was like, I didn't want to be in there without nobody. I was by myself. It's dark. And so he told that fiddler.
He was afraid of the dark.
He looked at that fiddler and he said, hey, why don't you start playing a little bit, we can dance. And that fiddler's just like dumbstruck. He's like, okay, I guess zombie tells you to fiddle, you're going to get to fiddling, right? so he starts fiddling, and old Aaron Kelly decides, well, this is pretty good. I'm going to get up and dance. So he starts dancing, and bits and pieces of him start falling off. And so the wife and the fiddler kind of look at each other like, all right, we'll keep playing. So they keep playing and keep playing and keep playing. And more pieces of Aaron Kelly starts falling off as he starts whirling around the house. And it's just a story about him dancing until he falls apart. And then I think they go and bury him again, or they throw him in the furnace or something like that. But it just, Aaron Kelly's Bones makes me think of Bloody Bones.
yeah, absolutely. Kind of reminiscent of Monkey Paw too, like the idea of the person coming back home after the wish or whatever. That person doesn't actually make it into the building, but the whole idea of the person coming back from the dead. It's just neat stuff. It's good.
I think that's kind of a recurring theme, right? In folklore, is that cautionary tale for children, especially with the monsters.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there was here I'll mention a couple more things before we move on. In the folklore on the Wikipedia, it's talking about Bloody Bones. Bloody Bones is sometimes regarded as a water demon, haunting deep ponds, oceans, and old marl pits, which often became filled with water to form ponds, where it dragged children into the depths, much like the Grindelow and Jenny Greenteeth. What in the hell is Jenny Greenteeth?
I don't like
Don't know that one.
I don't want to know. But cautionary tales, man. You don't want kids to go in your bodies of water like that.
You could drown. Don't go in there. There's a big mean creature's going to grab you and drag you down. When in reality, we're just worried about them slipping in and drowning.
Jimmy Greenteeth will come up and get you.
Yeah. So children were told to, quote, keep away from the marl pit, or raw head and bloody bones will have you. Ruth Tongue, in her book Somerset Folklore, that said that bloody bones lived in a dark cupboard, usually under the stairs. If you were heroic enough to peep through a crack, you would get a glimpse of the dreadful, crouching creature with blood running down his face, seated, waiting on a pile of raw bones that had belonged to children who told lies or said bad words. If you peeked through the keyhole, he got you anyway.
So you also can't look.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was like, I don't want to be gross, but it's like, I wonder if that was like, hey, mom and dad's trying to get a little private time. You're in trouble. Yeah.
Rawhead and Bloody Bones is going to kill you if you come in here. That's what's happening to mom. That's why we're screaming. We're keeping him away. We're protecting him. You're welcome for our sacrifice.
We're having a wrestling match with Rawhead and Bloody Bones.
We're fighting off the demons. Child, stay in your bed. Read your prayers.
Oh,
That's fantastic. Anybody got any other stories about Rawhead and Bloody Bones before we move on?
I do know. I mean, it's not necessarily a story, but like everybody I know that has heard of Rawhead and Bloody Bones is typically like, forget that noise. They don't want to talk about it. So.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right.
Like Zach, if just drop that bomb on him sometime, dude. How's Rawhead and Bloody Bones doing? It just he gets tore up, man.
He'd just turn around and walk off.
Yep, pretty much.
No, he is legend.
It is spooky.
He who must not be named.
Like, I don't intend to do that to my kids, but we'll see how it goes. If they get out of line, if they're not reading their Bible, th're saying dirty words, they're getting some Rawhead and Bloody Bones story.
Or if you and Shelly need a few minutes.
Right.
If you come out of your room, you'll die. That's what I'm saying.
Got to kill Whistle with Rawhead.
It's ain't going to take 30 seconds to wrestle the sky to the ground. Just give me a second.
I need a couple minutes.
Oh.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, that's good.
Anyway.
Anyway, let's get a little closer to our hometown.
In 1891, after falling into a mysterious coma following the loss of her newborn son, Octavia was declared dead and quickly buried. But shortly after, horrifying signs emerged that she may have been buried alive. Her husband's decision to exhume her revealed a terrifying truth that has haunted Pikeville, Kentucky ever since. With ghostly sightings and the whispers of a curse, the name Octavia Hatcher is always on the lips to the locals.
So Octavia Hatcher is probably a name all three of us are familiar with, and anybody that's listened to us from the hometown should be familiar with the name Octavia Hatcher.
Absolutely.
There is a big statue of her just above the college in the cemetery, right?
Yep. So actually, to point out how close it is to home, if I stepped out my front door and turned around, I could see the grave of Octavia Hatcher from my house.
Go do it right now, Lee. See if she got her back turned on.
Go take a picture.
Do it right now. Do it. Don't be a bitch.
I will. I will not be doing that. It terrifies me. The other day, actually, I guess it's been a few days ago, but we got out of the car, me and the children, and the children are not familiar with the story of Octavia Hatcher yet. So we get out of the car and we hear somebody like screaming somewhere or some noise, and they're like, "What is that?" And I said, "It's probably Octavia Hatcher." And Shelly was like, "Hey, shut up." They're like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it, because I don't want to, put my crying children to bed." If you look out your windows, kids, you can see the grave of a lady where she was buried alive.
So that's the story of Octavia Hatcher, right? She was. Now, is that real? That she was legitimately buried alive?
Yes, legit. So the idea, she gave birth to a son when she was 21 years old. This is in 1891, so science. There's some struggles in making sure people are dead when they're actually dead. So the kid dies, and this throws her into this crazy depression, right? Like, I mean, understandably, but it really, really affected her to the point of like full-on neurosis sort of stuff. So this depression was like debilitating sort of stuff. And her health started to decline. Her husband was actually a doctor, and he was like witnessing this stuff. But as her depression got worse and worse, she started to get sick, and her health started to decline over time, obviously. So she fell into like a coma after a while. And so again, limited medical knowledge of the time, they think she's dead. So there was no definitive diagnosis that she was dead or whatever, but they assume that she's dead given her state that she was in. So on May 2nd, 1891, very specific day, like it has all this is recorded in history, she was pronounced dead. And doctors couldn't explain the cause of her death. It's like, she died of a broken heart sort of idea, but assumed it was related to like her grief and just the illness that came with her grief. So now the concept would be, modern day people go, well, why would they immediately throw her into a grave? But it was hot. That sounds gross, but it was hot out. And so there's concerns about, hygiene. People were not being embalmed or whatever. So they buried her quickly to keep her from, decomposing, just a few days after her death. And so Well, here's a creepy part. Like it actually still gives me a little bit of a chill. There was this mysterious illness, and I don't know that it was ever like discovered what this actually was, but there was this illness that was sweeping through Pikeville in this area, and it was causing lethargy and comas, and it made people look like they were dead. So that's pretty messed up. So after she was buried, some other people that were similarly ill started to recover after a while, and so you can imagine the horror of her husband in this moment, right? He's like, he's seen all these other people getting better, and he's like, oh no, surely not. And so what they do is they go
and
and
a tsetse fly, by the way.
It was what?
It was sleeping sickness by the tsetse fly.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, they said they thought it was something like encephalitis or something. It's like a infection of the brain that kind of shuts everything down for just a little bit, but you basically just wake back up.
It says Herma Shelton was who conducted the research that pointed that. And we, little side note, my team actually was put together for in case we ever had outbreak of sleeping sickness.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
The team that I worked for a while. That was one of the serious communicable diseases that we together for.
So, with this knowledge that people are getting better at this point, her husband freaks out, right? And so he has her dug up. He has her dug up, and when they open up her coffin, God gives me chills thinking about it, man. Her nails were broken off, and they were bloodied, and the interior of the coffin was scratched up, and her face was twisted up in terror. What the flip? So, and that confirmed that she was actually indeed buried alive. So then she probably woke up in her coffin, recognized what had happened, and tried to claw her way out, and then died there in her coffin.
And that is like real, like that is
100%
confirmed stuff, or that is like folklore that this happened back in the day.
It's there's a lot of stuff written down like it did, and there's relatives of the Hatchers that will say that it didn't happen.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of the things I'm reading. There's relatives that will say that that's not what happened. But from what I've seen, that was also James Hatcher, the husband. He said he never remarried, but whenever he was buried later, he had them tie a string to his finger to go up to a bell.
Yep.
Which, I mean, was a serious thing at one point because that was happening apparently pretty frequently. I think it was over in Europe, like later. But, I mean, it lends credence to the idea if he was seriously buried like that. Because, I mean, he was kind of afraid of it himself. So.
So with this, it's obviously a huge legend in town or whatever. And there's a lot of do you want to get into the whole, the legacy of the ghost and all that stuff for now?
Yeah. So we've got the background of Octavia Hatcher. We can understand why she'd be pissed.
Yeah.
What's her legacy?
So her actual So what?
Oh, were you going to talk about the statue?
Yes. So her grave is actually a statue of her standing, and it overlooks Pikeville. It overlooks the city, where we live. And so what would happen was people would, there's a statue of her holding her child. And it was just like a baby that she held out in her hands on her statue. And so what was happening is that people were stealing the baby because the baby detached from the statue. And people who does this stuff? Who messes with this, man? So people were stealing the baby. And what would happen is the statue would turn and look for the child, supposedly. So, and it would turn different directions at night until the child was returned. And so eventually people kept vandalizing the statue, and they took the statue or the baby and they cemented the baby at her feet so it couldn't be stolen again. And the statue never did turn again.
Yeah, they've done that, and they put a fence up around it too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and that was this is on a college campus too. So, you got kids up there messing around and at this graveyard. But that's the stories. You'd hear her crying and calling for her child at night, and the statue would turn and be turned in the mornings when people would wake up.
We went up there a few times, me and a couple buddies, back when we were doing the ghost hunting thing. We go up to Pikeville Cemetery up there and do the EVP tests, and is anything here? We'd take pictures of Octavia and her statue and all that. I think it's missing a hand right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the hand is actually where the child was attached. And so they eventually just said, they took it off there, and that's why she's missing a hand, apparently. But pretty wild stuff. And again, you can, if you drive through downtown Pikeville or whatever, you can look up and see the statue. I guess we could probably take a picture and upload it or something for the show notes, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. We can go.
Oh, well, that's probably on Google. You can probably Google it.
Yeah, but I think it'd be nice. We could probably go up. I wonder if there's a time we could get together and take a picture of all of us up there. We'll talk about it after the show.
During the daytime, please.
No, let's go right now. I'll meet you up early.
Nope.
Let's go.
Heels Have Nerds live from the statue of Octavia Thatcher. Special guest, the ghost of Octavia.
I pretty well grew up on a cemetery, so I don't care. Let's go.
Yeah, actually, I grew up in front of a cemetery as well, but it's like,
dude, we all did.
That's freaky.
That's another little thing. Like, how many of us grew up next to a cemetery?
Mine has I think last week counted. I had like 637 graves.
Good grief.
Be creepy if that kept getting like smaller every year. Well, a couple of them got loose, then.
There are some up there that are just rocks stuck in the ground, like we don't know who it was. Yeah. So
just markers. Yeah, there's one up on the hill we used to run around when I was an edgier young man. We'd go hang out by the grave. And it's all like Civil War era stuff, man. Like it's crazy how old these hills are and how old some of these cemeteries are around.
Some of the graves, the ones that are just rocks, was apparently people heading west and stopped, and people had died here. So they just buried them and then went on. Yeah.
Well, I mean that, and when you're in the hills and you're in days before, mass transportation or just having a readily available transportation, someone dies on the homestead, you ain't taking them into town. You're cleaning them up, you're digging a hole in the backyard, and you're putting Timmy, who went from the consumption, out in the back. Right. And that's where these little family plots popped up from.
Yeah. Yeah. Expedient. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, literally and not to mention our entire area is just one giant Indian burial ground. So there's that. But it's no wonder there's ghost stories and spooks and haints about constantly.
I'd like to add this, man. I think it's funny. But so locally, the theaters will put on shows about Octavia Hatcher. It's not every year, but typically there's some sort of show attached to it. Mm-hmm. And I took some students one year to watch the show, and I was like, this is really cool. I didn't know a whole lot about it, and so we go to the local theater to watch this show, and it's high school students. I think it was sophomores. We watch it, and it's cool. We're enjoying it. And then there's like a bunch of little kids there too, though, from the elementary school that come in to watch. And I guess it's just like, hey, spooky story, And the show's going on, and it's telling a story about Octavia getting sick, her baby dies and stuff. I was like, that's kind of dark, for these kids. And the culmination, dude, the spectacle at the end, oh my Lord. Yeah. So it was a vertical coffin, like the curtains open up. It's a vertical coffin with a glass top, so you can look into it, right? So we're looking at Octavia laying in her coffin, mm-hmm. and she appears dead or whatever, and then she wakes up, and then she starts pounding on the glass. So imagine these kids, these little kids are watching this happen. This lady's pounding on this glass and screaming, and then she starts rubbing her fingers, and she had like paint on her fingers, red paint, and was just clawing.
Hey kids, who's ready for trauma?
Right. I was like, oh snap. Like I'm freaking out at this, man. I was like, these kids are going to be like, what is going on? So I'm looking around like
for the rest of your life?
Yeah. I'm looking around like the Blink 182 thing. I'm like, what the is going on here? But it was wild to watch, and it stuck with me, man. It's a very, very gruesome image. They did a wonderful job with it, but man, I did not expect that kind of spectacle. So
I mean, we grew up in a town, in an area that was famous for telling its children, if you head down to the creek, you're going to get pulled in, drugged, and dead. Yeah. Like, why wouldn't we show them a woman corpse coming to life trying to escape the grave? Or wanted it buried alive.
There really is like some dark history. And we're talking Happy McCoy stuff here, but even like, you point out to kids, it's like, that's where they hung, Cotton Top. It's like, whoa, what now?
Yeah. It's not like some of these stories are, oh, it's fun folklore and whatever. The story of Octavia Hatcher. Did it happen? Did it not happen? Has it been embellished? And that's kind of what happens with folklore, right? There's probably a lick of truth somewhere in it, right? But as it gets told, this kind of centuries old game of telephone continues to happen, and these stories morph and change and metamorphose into their own little living, breathing entities almost.
Yeah, Octavia Hatcher's not a real person. Somebody just built a statue as a prank, and it just kind of got out of hand.
Dude, that'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
So these people are committed.
We've been up to that. That Pikeville Cemetery is big too.
Yeah.
It's a large cemetery, and it is creepy, man. It is. It's definitely creepy, and the statue of Octavia is not a small thing. You know, it is a pretty large figure of this woman on a larger pedestal.
Oh yeah, it's
there.
prominent.
Yeah, and so it in itself has this kind of imposing figure to it. It's really cool, and may Octavia Hatcher finally rest in peace. Well, let's move on to our final bit. And let's go a little bit to the northeast to some of our neighbors in the hollows of a happy little town in West Virginia. In the happy little town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, whispers of an unsettling legend linger in the air. It was in the 1960s that the residents first glimpsed the Mothman. A towering figure with glowing red eyes and expansive wings that cut through the night like a harbinger of doom. Sightings became frequent, each one steeped in dread as strange occurrences and tragic events followed in the creature's wake. Locals spoke in hushed tones of the Mothman's eerie presence, believing he was a warning, a specter linked to the town's darkest hours. As the nights grew longer, the line between reality and myth blurred, leaving Point Pleasant forever haunted by the enigmatic being that soared through its sky. The Mothman of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Is there, other than maybe Bigfoot and Loch Ness, and the Loch Ness Monster, a more popular cryptid?
That's a good question. Oh,
The chupacabra. Yeah, that chupa thing. That Mexican lizard eats all the goats.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part from Red versus Blue. Church, what's that Mexican lizard eats all the goats? Chupacabra, sir? Yeah, what do you think? Chupa thingy.
Chupa blah blah blah.
Well, the Mothman, man, dude, this is some of my favorite folklore of Appalachia. The Mothman of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. What do you guys know about the Mothman?
There's a movie.
You know, I'm actually about there with Cody, if that's the extent of your knowledge, because like I know that he was like kind of a harbinger of like ill omens, or like he was just kind of an ill omen, right? Is the idea like he would see the Mothman and bad things would happen? Is that kind of the idea?
The idea was that he was almost warning of the bad things.
There's a lot of different explanations that people had. So there were a few different things that went on in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So this started, the first ever sighting of the Mothman was in November 15th, 1966. There's two young couples in Point Pleasant, Roger and Linda Scarberry, and I'm reading this from Wikipedia, and Steve and Mary Mallet. They told police they'd seen a large black creature whose eyes glowed red, standing at the side of the road near what's called the TNT area. And so the TNT area in Point Pleasant, West Virginia was a World War II, like a former World War II munitions plant where they, build whatever. And Linda Scarberry described it as a slender, muscular man about 7 foot tall with white wings. And she said she was unable to describe its face because of how hypnotic its eyes were. And they even said that this creature pursued them through the air as far as the Point Pleasant city limits, because the TNT area is probably about 10 to 15 miles outside of town. Having been there 2 or 3 times myself. And it is a creepy place, boys.
I've actually never been myself. I keep getting invitations from people because it's super popular.
I've never been. I really want to go.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But more on the Mothman. So over the next few days after that initial sighting, more people started reporting similar encounters after the local newspapers covered it. So there were 2 firemen who saw a large bird with big red eyes. Now, a lot of people were saying there was an unusually large heron that the Mason County Sheriff, in Mason County, West Virginia, Mason County Sheriff George Johnson believed the sightings were due to an unusually large heron that he termed a shot poke, shitapoke. I don't know how the hell you pronounce that word, shitapokey or shot poke, one or the other. And there was a contractor that said when he aimed a flashlight at a creature in a nearby field, its eyes glowed like bicycle reflectors.
Wow. Yeah.
And he would blame, and people would go on to start blaming like all kinds of sorts of different things on the creature. They blamed, electrical interference with their televisions, that their channels would start to go in and out, that dogs were disappearing, so on and so forth. All kinds of things were beginning to be blamed on the Mothman, and these sightings were beginning to pick up. And they continued on for a while. And the Mothman, the descriptions varied, as they do in cryptid sightings. Some people see it and it looks like this. Some people, there's not like a really uniform thing other than big glowing red eyes, 2 big wings. It's about 7 foot tall. Now, you guys said you've only heard of Mothman through the movie, or?
I've not even watched the movie. Mostly mine is from people telling stories or just kind of giving me an idea about it, kind of summarizing what happened. My brother is interested in particular. He likes conspiracy theories, so he's all about that.
Yeah.
But so I think it's beyond a conspiracy theory though. Like, what do you think?
I've looked a little into it, not much. And I've also watched the movie, but there's a whole lot of more sightings and stuff on it than there is any other cryptid.
There's a ton, man, and it is associated with one genuinely massive tragedy that happened in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and that is the collapse of the Silver Bridge. So the legend has it that sightings of the Mothman continued across Point Pleasant through 1966 and going on until December of 1967. Now, in December of 1967, December 15th to be exact, there was a bridge that connected Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio. And that was called the Silver Bridge, and that was a suspension bridge built in 1928. In 1967, December 15th, amid heavy rush hour traffic, that bridge collapsed, leading to the deaths of 46 people. Reports say they saw Mothman all around the bridge leading up to that event, that the sightings were picking up and picking up and picking up, that people would see Mothman outside of their windows. Reports that a sighting of Mothman kept a gentleman's mother from being on the bridge that day, because she was too scared to leave her house, so on and so forth. And so they're kind of got this little idea of him as this harbinger. Not so much that he's either bringing this event to Point Pleasant and Gallipoli. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I don't know idea.
Gallipolis, Ohio. Or if you're looking at the lighter side of it, excuse me, that Mothman was trying to warn people of the impending doom, because it never, supposedly never harmed anybody, even though there were some reports of, Mothman tried to get in my house or tried to do this to me or do that to me.
Yeah, and that's the way the movie took it, was he was a warning them about the tragedy.
Yep, that's funny, because I was going to literally ask you guys, is he a good guy or a bad guy? Because I just didn't know. I've heard both.
It's debatable. Like, there's no real evidence for either.
I guess it's kind of like one of those things. Like, even if you are like the person that's coming to warn people, people don't want to see you coming, because it means bad news. Yeah, kill the messenger, sort of thing. Right?
Yeah. So the movie we're talking about. Is called The Mothman Prophecies. That movie came out in 2002. Starred Richard Gere and I can't remember the lady's name.
I love Richard.
Yeah, dude, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And guys, it's creepy month. If you haven't watched The Mothman Prophecies, watch The Mothman Prophecies.
Apparently, it was based on the book by John Keel.
Yeah, by John Keel's book he wrote in 1975. It was about the same name, The Mothman Prophecies. And that was what, a lot of people think really like kicked off the Mothman craze, because there were these sightings and people were saying, I saw the Mothman back in the late 60s. John Keel writes this book, and it kind of takes the story of the Mothman and puts it into a national reader's hands, right? And it kind of spurs this Mothman frenzy on. Now, sightings of Mothman did not just happen in our little area of Appalachia, right? So, Point Pleasant, West Virginia is what? Was hour and 15 minutes from where we're at right now?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And it's not local to here. It's not just limited to here. I think they've had reports of Mothman in Georgia, Russia. Said here on Wikipedia, it's saying Russian ufologists claim that Mothman sightings in Moscow foreshadowed the 1999 Russian apartment bombings.
Well, they had that, and there were some people that was believing that he was spotted around the Chernobyl disaster as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at something that was like he was spotted around Mexico at the time of the Mexican swine flu outbreak in 2009, and then in Fukushima, Japan, for their 2011 nuclear disaster.
Again, it sucks to be the Mothman, because it's like, what if he's showing up to warn people, and people are like, no, it's him.
Here's a cool nerd bit that's here on Wikipedia, and I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but it's a nice little thing to incorporate in. It says, due to the popularity of the Batman TV series at the time. This is our Adam West and who played Robin in that Batman?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, this was the Adam West Batman, and there was a villain, Killer Moth. And so some people believe that's popularity kind of led to the name Mothman being coined by the newspapers, kind of pushed around. Now, that's all fine and dandy, right? We have our cryptid, big, massive flying creature. It's chased people. It's this harbinger of doom. But the story of Point Pleasant goes deeper than Mothman. And this is why I love Point Pleasant. So Point Pleasant is also incredibly haunted, wildly haunted.
Really?
Oh my Lord. Extremely haunted. It is home to one of the most haunted, quote unquote, hotels in the world. And that is the Low Hotel.
We should go stay there as we hunt for Mothman.
I have had the pleasure of staying in the Low Hotel twice for a total of about 5 days. And let me tell you, that is the most terrifying fucking place I've ever been in my life.
Let's go. I want to go.
Pardon my French, but it is horrifying. They have cast iron skeleton keys still for the doors. It is not, oh, you get a little card and go key
Oh, that
in.
is amazing.
You use a cast iron skeleton key in, unlock the doors, the radiator pipes are running along the ceiling. It's got friggin' the carpet from The Shining running through. Like, it is terrifying, man. I'll never forget the first time we went up there. So we were going to hunt the Mothman and to visit the TNT area. That's what we were going to do because we're smart.
I want to go.
And we decided we were going to stay in the Low Hotel. And we go in, and there's this massive atrium with these giant pillars, and you can see up to the third floor. It's this, big marbled entryway. It's just this kind of relic of, I want to say like the 30s or so when it was built. Let me see when the Low Hotel was built.
It just spawned. It wasn't built.
Yeah, pretty much. But it is absolutely just a testament to its time. I'm trying to find when it was built, and all I'm seeing is like TripAdvisor, Low Hotel. Here's the TripAdvisor. Come see the TripAdvisor. So it was built in 1901, and it was originally named the Spencer Hotel in honor of J.S. Spencer. Then it got operated by two brothers, Homer and Griff Smith, and was purchased by the Lowe family in 1929. And it's got like a marble staircase you ascend up. Has a fourth floor ballroom. Like, this place was amazing. And Point Pleasant was a fairly prosperous, like, river town. So riverboats would come through. You would have all of these, shipping on the Ohio River would kind of come through. It was a little bit of a port town on the Ohio River for this stuff. So you had all kinds of people coming in and out. And the Lowe Hotel brags about its ghosts. And it is apparently riddled with them.
Let's go.
Well,
give me my Luigi vacuum. Got it.
There is a problem with going to the Lowe Hotel right now. It is shut down.
Really?
Oh,
yeah. It got shut down, I want to say in December of last year because of from what I read, issues with fire inspection. It's not up to code. And so it is, as of right now, temporarily closed. But this place, guys, was haunted. It's the only place I've ever used a voice recorder and felt like I got something.
Oh, wow.
It's
what spooks me is that you are such a skeptic and you're like, this place sucks.
dude.
So I'm like,
you're just making me excited.
I've been to dozens of like purportedly haunted graveyards. I've stared Octavia Hatcher in the face. I've went out to the TNT area hunting the Mothman. We've been to Frozen Creek in Breathitt, which was the site of a cloudburst that drowned a bunch of boarding school kids. We've been in the basement of that auditorium before it was torn down. I have never in my life felt fear the way I felt in the Lowe Hotel.
That's crazy.
And especially since they have newspaper cutouts of the friendly ghosts of the Lowe Hotel. But it's terrifying. We genuinely got what I thought to be. I mean, it's probably not, right? It's probably not, but I don't have an explanation for it. And it sounded like three of my buddies went up to the ballroom one night. We got the okay to look around. I stayed in our room because we stayed in a king size room that was supposedly, quote unquote, one of the most haunted rooms in the hotel. A&E had done a special in our room that we stayed in 2 weeks before we stayed in it. Back when A&E was a thing. I don't know if A&E is a thing anymore. So I stayed in the room with like a night vision camera because we thought we were big shit. We brought the video camera with the night vision. We brought a film camera, a digital camera, and electronic voice recorder. And we thought we were tough. We're Ghost Adventures down here. We're doing it all. And so my buddy and his wife and a friend, I think I told this story on the other spooky special. They went up, so they were going to check out the ballroom where there was purportedly a riverboat captain who would continue his dances through the evening in the ballroom of the Low Hotel. And the ballroom was nothing but tables and literally like mop-haired Victorian rocking horses. Like, what the shit? Like, who needs that? Why do you need like a genuine like wooden rocking horse with the mop hair? Why? It is 2000. This is the year 2000 and whatever when we went down there. Why is that still a thing?
So you can have a ballroom blitz.
And the tables were like covered, in like white sheets, literally. So it just looked like there were, this kind of ballet of ghosts in the darkness. Anytime you shined like a flashlight across, it was just nothing but these tall white sheets just kind of scattered throughout the ballroom.
It's there for aesthetics then.
And so you had to walk up this small set of stairs to get to the fourth floor. And they took the digital camera, the video camera, the digital camera, the film camera, and the voice recorder. And you could hear them talking, so they kept it going the entire time. And you can hear my buddy's wife, like in between them saying, "Stay close to me, stay," and she's like whimpering, crying. I don't know why she went. You're terrified, obviously. She was clenching her Bible the entire time. And then you can every now and then hear kind of the and then the rolling of the film camera as it flashed. And then you had cameras used to take actual film and you had to roll it to take the next picture. That was a thing back in the day. And you could hear that on the recorder. And so you'd hear them go up a step, her whimper, picture be taken, go up a couple other steps. And then you hear the camera flash, her whimper, and as clear as day, a fourth voice on that recorder just kind of growl the words, "Back away."
Don't like that.
And then my buddy swears up and down. And if I think about it, we'll get him on one of these ones because I want him to tell the story. Swears up and down that he was pushed. And I heard this story because I was sitting back in the room while they were doing this. And I'm sitting by myself in a room, supposedly the ghost of somebody's grandmother passed away in, and she would sit and rock with the guests. And so I decided my dumbass was going to sit by myself in the dark and wait for Mamaw to show up. It's just me with the night vision camera, and I can do the entire time. I just feel like, and the bed's a king size bed, so it's massive. And I'm on one side of it. And I just know in my heart of hearts that there is something on the other side of the bed. I know, and I feel that. And then my mind keeps telling me there's something over there watching you. Shine the light from the camera over there. And I would not pushed out 100%. I did not a one part of me did. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm just going to sit here in the dark with this, with the camera on the rocking chair and wait to see if it moves. And that's what I did. And all of a sudden, about 30 minutes after they had broke, they come busting into the room, flip on the light, scare the hell out of me. And they all jump on the bed. My friend is just pale white. He is as ghostly white as I've ever seen him. He is breaking a sweat. Our other buddy, who was there, ends up and I'm like, "What in the hell's going on?" And he goes, "Well, Jeremiah said he got pushed." And I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, Jeremiah said he got pushed." And Jeremiah's wife, is just weeping openly, just crying. She's crying. She's looking through her Bible, like trying to find an appropriate passage to read, I guess. And I'm like, "Did you get pushed?" He goes, "Yeah." And he raises up his shirt and he genuinely has like a red spot where he's claiming to get pushed. Now, who knows if he bumped into something up there because it's in the dark. They're my friends. I know the type of people they are. We weren't drinking that night, but, we're sometimes idiots. Right? So we can bumble into something. So I don't know. Fair. And they said, "Here," I said, did you take the EVP? And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Let me listen to it." So we start listening back to that. We start looking at the pictures on the digital camera. There's nothing really on there. Some orbs, but orbs are bugs. Orbs are not real. Orbs are not a real thing. They will never be a real thing. Stop trying to make orbs happen. But we start listening to the voice recorder. And just clear as day, there's that voice. And that is the only thing I have ever found, other than some myths in Breathitt County up at the Frozen Creek, that I can't explain. They weren't there the night we were walking through, but they showed up on camera. Other than that made me think, okay, maybe there's something to this. Because I didn't know. I mean, it's terrifying.
Oh yeah.
That, and I saw a shadow break through the moonlight at the TNT area where the first sightings of the Mothman happened. And that
was just me getting my nightly stretch in. Sorry.
I'm telling you, man, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, it may not be haunted, but there's something going on.
That's where the goblins are.
It's the goblins.
It may not be a bad idea to just kind of tell some ghost stories at some point, man. Because I could tell you, like I told a ton today. Some students were like, "Do you believe in ghosts?" I was like, "Absolutely." I was like, "Let me list for you a few things." So at some point, I would be happy to share that on, the podcast. If anybody's interested in hearing it,
That
I can
might
carry
be,
it on for a while. Like I got a bunch.
that might be something fun to do for Christmas.
Ghost stories.
That actually used to be a thing on Christmas. Yeah,
that was the thing. Get around and gather. That's where like the Kidsy and the Christmas Carol and stuff came from.
There's a lot of scary stories for Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, all kinds of great ones. But that would be good. One last thing about Point Pleasant that I wanted to bring up is that there apparently, during the time of Mothman, were reported visits from mysterious men in black from the government.
It's the low men.
What's the low men?
That's that food you get Chinese.
Low men's from Stephen King.
I thought that was the noodles you get from the Chinese place.
Oh, low man, yeah. No, the low men is the Stephen King thing.
So people reported visits from men in black cars with black suits with black sunglasses who would pull up and ask residents questions. Around the time the Mothman was happening. And all the questions they asked were kind of, I don't think there's any real like consensus as to what they were looking for or what their reasoning was about that. But it's part of the lore of the Mothman is also the whole like UFO, Men in Black, deep state cover up type deal that ties in with that. This Point Pleasant's got it all, man. Right smack dab in the middle of Appalachia. Hell, Mothman's in a Fallout game, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Have you experienced the Mothman in Fallout?
I have not.
Terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Absolute. I don't want to get into a kick about it, but real quick. So I'm exploring Fallout 76, having a good time, playing my game. I'm solo. You're out, and this is back when Fallout 76 had no NPCs, like no human NPCs besides other people, other characters, like other people playing. They've changed it since, but at this point it was like very lonely. It was extremely lonely unless you had somebody you were adventuring with, but very lonely to be exploring West Virginia. So I get on this cliff and I'm looking, like I'm scoping around, looking for cool stuff. And I see something black over in some woods down below me. And it turns around and looks at me, and it's Mothman. And it looks at me through my scope and then teleports on top of me and killed me. I was like, dude, I jumped out of my chair. I was like, forget it. Whatever I had on me is gone. I'm not going back there.
New powers dropped for Mothman.
Well, I mean,
teleport.
You think about that. You're looking through a scope, and then the thing turns around and shows you its eyes. It's red eyes, and then suddenly it's on top of you and kills you. I was like, that's enough of that.
I would have to go back immediately and be like, buddy.
Oh, it was no contest, dude. It wasn't like I put up a fight. It was just, he slayed me. I was like, okie dokie.
Oh yeah, I'd probably dive a ton doing it, but I'm stubborn.
Speaking of stubborn, you know who else was stubborn? John Keel.
Yeah,
Remember John Keel, who wrote the Mothman Prophecies?
he
So
do.
apparently, John Keel was the person who is credited with popularizing the name Men in Black.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know
from
that.
the from his book, author of the Mothman Prophecies. And he introduced the shorthand for MIB. I'm reading this from the mothmanfandom.com, and we'll link to this stuff in the show notes. It even has like a quote unquote alleged photo of the Men in Black as they're entering this business front.
That's neat.
Yeah. So apparently, unknown persons were reported frequent to the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, that were in black suits, white shirts, black ties, and black shoes, perfect in appearance, yet completely out of style for 66 and 67. Said to ask people questions about the Mothman and told them not to speak about it. Not only did they visit reporter Mary Hire and question her about the creature, but one of them said to have also threatened Mothman witnesses such as Connie Carpenter and Linda Scarberry. And Linda Scarberry said in an interview, the MIB wore black suits, black hats, and sunglasses, drove black Cadillacs, looked like human beings, but their skin was somewhat transparent. You could see the veins in their hands very clearly, and their fingers were longer than a normal person's fingers as well.
Ew.
Yeah. It said Daddy shook hands with them, and he said they were awkward in shaking hands. They seemed not to know what to do or how to do it.
That's freaky to think about, dude. It's like that clues you in. These people don't know what's up.
So there's a little bit more about John Keel. So Keel would chase the Men in Black anytime he would come across it, or supposedly whenever he would come across these people, he'd chase them, try to confront them. He had the local police in many towns looking for him. And when he was in West Virginia and Ohio, people would call his hotel and tell them the MIB were there, and he'd race over the location, but they'd be gone by the time he arrived. Now, who knows if those people were actually calling, oh, we got Men in Black. Here's your Men in Black running. You better catch it. Old John Keel and his Men in Black. But he said that the MIB were mainly reported to drive black Cadillacs until he started doing articles about the MIB driving these cars, at which point they are said in the folklore to have switched to Volkswagens. Once John Keel started reporting what they were driving, they switched cars. The cars they would drive often had license plates that had never been issued to anyone, so the story says. Then on one afternoon in the spring of 1967, John Keel and a female friend were walking along 42nd and 3rd Avenue when a stranger with a pointed face deliberately took a photo of them and then turned and ran away. The man was wearing a poorly fitting sports jacket and slacks, according to John. That just sounds like somebody took a picture of him and ran off. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Yeah. But
that camera stole his soul.
But yeah, man, Point Pleasant. We got a cryptid, we got ghosts, and we got aliens. We got all three of the things we just talked about. All in one Appalachian town, right?
But do they have goblins?
That's what aliens. That's the aliens. The Hellier goblins were aliens, right? That's what we were thinking they were. They were essentially Mego from Pluto.
It's I'm gonna say Point Pleasant, 1 star, no goblins.
1 star, no goblins. It's because Mothman. That's what Mothman feeds them.
There you go. He's busy, man. He's protecting people.
You know what's got
this?
You know what's got 5 stars? Because it's got goblins.
Is it the Hills Have Nerds?
The Hills Have Nerds, because we have a goblin. He's not here with us right now. He's somewhere globe trotting around in yonder Japan, but he will be back with us for the next episode. And we hope you guys enjoyed this trip through the folklore of Appalachia. We only scratched the surface, guys. There's so many great stories and so many, spooky, creepy, terrifying, and wonderful things that have come out of these mountains. And if you have any you want to share with us, we'd love to hear them. Let us know your creepy stories. Let us know your local cryptid. Email us at hillshavenerds@gmail.com. There is no the. hillshavenerds@gmail.com, or come on our Facebook and spin terrifying yarns so we can keep each other out of the darknesses of the woods and away from the dangers of abandoned lakes. We try to keep Cody safe whatever way we can. And if we got to scare the hell out of him to do it, we're going to do it.
You can't keep me away from Rawhead and Bloody Bones.
Come on,
no, Cody, don't drink that.
Come on our Facebook, come in our Discord, come have fun, do some conversing with us. You can check out some videos on YouTube when we decide to post them. Right now, we got all the backlogs of the show. We got a backlog of our live episode there. You can see my little breakdown of the holler critters, a Pikeville, Kentucky-based TCG with all kinds of wonderfully, slightly offensive, stereotypical holler critters that are not Pokemon at all. It's wonderful Pikeville TCG. It's homegrown, made by a great dude. That being said, gentlemen, Lee, where can the people find you if they want to get spooky with you?
Okay, so you can find me on mostly YouTube at PixelBroLee, or you can find me on Twitch at PixelBroLee, and then I have a lot of socials. I don't have X, but I have Instagram and I have Facebook, but it's all at PixelBroLee. So, and I talk about retro video games and that sort of like. I love hearing about these sort of things. And actually, on my YouTube, I have a couple of videos of Appalachian horror stories told by my mother. And it's some of the oldest videos on my YouTube. That's where I started getting some traction on YouTube. So, but yeah.
Cody, how about you? Where can the people find you if they're trying to get spooky with Coffee Break?
Probably out in the hills somewhere.
But wandering near the lake, too close.
Wandering too close to a lake. No, I'm the only place I'm at is you can probably catch me in the Discord pretty easy, but I'm also on Twitch at twitch.tv/Coffee Break Lounge, and usually just play random stuff over there. I'm mainly there just to chat.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed the show, let somebody know about it. Like and subscribe where you can. Take a few seconds and leave a review. It helps a lot of people find the nerds, and it helps us out, helps us get to a larger audience. But word of mouth is our strongest ally. If you enjoy hanging out with the nerds in the hills, let somebody else know so they can come sit and listen to the yarns we spin and talk about yonder tabletop role-playing games, haunts, Batmans, Supermans, and all the like throughout. Power Rangers, whatever you like, we're going to talk about it. Have a happy October, and we'll see you next time.
1, 2, 3, 4.